आपका लैग हो रहा
All right, guys, we're live. Good evening and a warm welcome to all at MSC Red Devils NCR. I hope yesterday was not an April Fool's prank because what we seen yesterday was nothing close to the United that we are used to seeing all this while. Uh, who are these people and what have they done to the real Manchester United? Is the question that was there on my mind after seeing the performance yesterday. But yeah, a disappointing way to start the month of April. I put in a tweet on our official Twitter page, that this was the crucial month and how we start the month depends and mostly would give us a fair understanding of how we'll stand once the season ends. And safe to say, it's not been a very good start. A poor performance overall, and we've fallen to fourth place. I think after more or less when it seemed like we had a firm foothold on the third spot. We are now on fourth on because of our abysmal goal difference. So I have Partosh Bhai and Anshuman Bhai with me on the stream. Good evening, gentlemen. Hope you're doing well. I know it's difficult too, but then it is what it is. Anshuman Bhai, let's begin with you. With most of our players, in relative freshness after the international break, it was expected that the performance would be much better than what they showed on yesterday. However, it was not to be. So let us start by getting your thoughts about the game. Just what did you feel about the game in general, and then once when we're done with that, we'll just get into a little more depth. Once when we get to know, I get to know the point of view of both of you gentlemen. What do you feel about the game,
So I think most of us are at this point preconditioned to just have a hyper reaction after every defeat or after every result that does not go our way. I expected most of the reaction that we have had over the past 24 hours is very expected, not surprising at all. And my first reaction after the result and even during the match was okay. Newcastle have played us out here quite well, and fair play to them because this is not the Newcastle of last season. This is the Newcastle of this season. This is the best defense in the league, better than Arsenal and Cities. And one thing that they do very well and is that they block the teams out. They have had issues with scoring goals, so that was one of the challenge that they would have had coming into the game. But I don't think they would have had an issue worrying about how to stop United from scoring. So, like I said, best defense. They are at home. The home crowd is jubilant because for the first time in a long time. So all that creates Newcastle a very formidable prospect. So it was they were always going to be a very complicated match for United. It's not to say that United could not have won the game, but it's just that it was a match of equal footing. United are a team slightly on the up, Newcastle are a team aggressively on the up. So two teams on equal footing collided. Both of them had a plan. Newcastle shut us out. We won very. Most of our players did not really have that much of a leg in the game anyway. We were most of our build-up chances were cancelled out very early in their build-ups. So wasn't that much of an issue either. As far as the performances go, this was more of a nil-nil reaction with nil-nil performance. But because what we need to keep in mind is what came through for Newcastle in this game was the aerial superiority in the center spaces of the penalty box, because both of the goals that they conceded was headers, and both of them happened because our centre backs are not at least in this particular game were not really that bothered about marking. So it's not even an issue that they have taller players, which is why they were able to maintain that aerial superiority. It's just that they had a better uh, had better moments, and they took those moments in a better way. United were not prepared from an aerial standpoint, so that's what it is. It was a nil-nil game that did not go our way. So I did not really have that much of a hyper reaction to it. It's like, okay, two equal teams playing, one team was slightly better, they took their chances, this happens. What's important from me from a result point of view is that this is a result that I feel that the players needed, because because of the way the season has spanned out for even the rest of the teams, our fan base and most importantly the players to some extent I feel may have started taking the top four position for granted. That okay, this is something that's going to happen anyway. Let's see if we can go for the title. And from the starting of the season, one of the important points for Manchester United was to see whether they can do that. Now, luckily for us, Liverpool they haven't really worked out. Tottenham have capitulated. Chelsea have completely capitulated, never been in the scene. But there are other forces. Brighton are pushing for it. You have Newcastle making a push for it. So for United, this result has come at a very good time because we were not particularly abhorrent. I at least don't feel that way. I've seen a lot of people saying that United was tried. That's not my undertaking. I just saying that two equal. For me, it was just two equal teams playing the game, and one team came out on top. No big deal that on that. So the result is important because now it gives them not. This has come at a time where you enter the business end of the season, where with the remaining 5 to 10 games, the results become more and more important, not just for you, but also the teams you're going to face. So your performances are going to have to be better anyway. So you can't really go into every game expecting, okay, this is a mid-table team, they have nothing to play for, or this is a team at the bottom of the Premier League, because the teams that are at the bottom of the Premier League are much more likely to give you an aggressive challenge than the teams who have nothing else to play for. So United have complicated fixtures turning up because this is the business and it's going to be hard for everyone. So for them to have a wake-up call at this particular moment in the first game of April is quite important. I'm glad it has happened. I like these kind of results that just give you that jolt of a reaction. And because the performance was not that pathetic, I don't really see that being that much of a problem. I think if United can just keep their act together and not completely implode, which we cannot never really guess, but it doesn't seem like that's a thing that's going to happen either. So as long as we play as well as we have throughout the season, I think top four should be from this point onward. Top four should be something that we can seal before by the time season ends up in May. So yeah, performance was not that much of a concern for me. The result I think came at the right time. And yes, United need to keep in mind that top four is a thing they need to earn. It's not a thing for granted. It's never going to be a thing for granted. And there's a very good chance that we still end up with a top four place.
Very, very well said, Anshuman bhai. I scrolled around Twitter yesterday, and in our WhatsApp group also, there were quite a few borderline extreme tweets about certain situations that panned out in the game, so on and so forth. If only a vast majority of our fans thought rationally, then we would be in a much better place. Paritosh bhai, coming to you, I'd like to know your thoughts also on the game. What did you make of the performance? Do you mirror Anshuman bhai's thoughts, or do you have a thought process which is something different to what Anshuman bhai said?
I mean, Anshuman and me are quite on the same page when it comes to the season. I think Anshuman was on the stream when we talked about this early in the season as well. Or Anshuman and I were doing a stream where we talked about this that some fans have a hyper reaction to these kind of results, but these kind of results are bound to happen in a season where there's a team in build up. This team is in transition. We are forgetting how quickly Ten Hag has managed to overturn a side which was not looking like even being able to challenge for the top four rather than winning a trophy, just like 9 months back. He has transformed this side into a side which gave hope to people that we are going to finish in the top two, possibly, and that is the kind of work that has been done. But in a season like that, results are bound to happen that don't go in your way. And we talked about this, I think, Anshuman, during the start of the season, that there are going to be results where we'll not have everything go our way, and we'll have teams come and get results from us, or we'll go to them and not get the results we wanted. And Newcastle was that kind of game. Everything fell perfectly for Newcastle. I think something similar happened when we traveled to Emirates against Arsenal. We played well. It was 50-50 for most part of it, but Arsenal were just slightly better. They got a goal and they got a 3-2 victory. And everybody was pissed that how can we concede so late and this and that. But these results are bound to happen. And for us to just think that everything will go our way and will not falter in a transition season is, I think, borderline idiotic, because it is expecting too much out of something that doesn't have the resources. We were exposed in the midfield department, I think, and that will happen when there is lack of depth. We talked about this time and again. We finally have a CDM in Casemiro, but we don't have a replacement for him. He's not going to be able to play. And there were many chances where we felt Casemiro would have been a huge upgrade over anybody in that particular position in this particular game, and in many games where he hasn't featured. And the results show for themselves. I think in the 8 games that he hasn't played, I think 4 of them we have lost, if I'm not mistaken. and that is the kind of results that United face when there is the lack of CDM. The lack of CDM was clearly shown when he wasn't there in the side. I think every fan was convinced that this is the position that we need to bolster. We finally have a player in Casemiro that can play that position and is doing wonders for us in that position. But we don't have that squad depth to quite go in our favor when he's not there. And we need to find players or a player to replace him or to at least play a second fiddle because we don't have that kind of player. So when you have lack of depth, these kinds of results happen. These kind of results happen, and I think that particular position is a cause of concern for United, as are many. The striker position, we are not able to get goals. That is one problem that we're having. If Rashford doesn't fire, we struggle a lot. So there are positions that can be worked upon, but I don't think this was a piss poor performance. I generally don't think that. If you take out the late goal from Wilson, uh, I don't think it was a piss poor performance. It was a decent performance, an average performance, yes, where Newcastle got a goal, I think, in the 65th minute, if I'm not wrong, and then in the 88th minute. So they got a goal. We were under pressure. We tried to make something, couldn't make something. Then they got a late header in again. And there are positions that need to bolster. David De Gea again has been under question, and I think he'll be under question. Why are they extending his contract for the same kind of money, for the same kind of length? That is also a question that needs to be answered. There are questions that need to be answered, but the hyper reaction of fans, I think people are too emotionally attached, and sometimes when you get too emotionally attached to something, when things don't go in your favor, hyper reaction is bound to happen.
Yeah, I think two statements, two beautifully put statements, Anshuman by Paritosh by, uh, you hit home on a lot of points, and I think somewhere I stand somewhere around the middle. While I do agree that it was a game of close margins, I mean the fact while defense we were not able to offer a lot in attack. That is where I felt it was a little troublesome, and. Anshuman Bhai earlier in his assessment spoke about Newcastle having trouble to finish their chances, and they did have trouble to finish their chances. If we do take the first half, it was a miracle that the game was goalless at the end of the first half. How they did not manage to score in the first half, to me, will still remain one of life's greatest mysteries. But then that's how the game goes. Anjuman Bhai, Amit Bhai says that for this game, the Newcastle game, Eric Ten Hag does deserve a certain portion of the blame, rather than blaming some of the players. So let us talk about that. Now, this happened in the build-up to the Carabao Cup final. Also, Eric Ten Hag did get into a little bit of what you call war of words. For example, he did call Newcastle annoying. They are a type of opponents who tend to get in your skin, and that word of words continued. To the build up to this game also. He used the same verbiage, and while Eddie Howe did vehemently protest the fact that the fact of Newcastle's sportsmanship has been taken in a wrong light. That seemed to rev a fire up under Newcastle, which you could see yesterday. I mean, the likes of Dan Burn, Gimaresh, and even Longstaff, for that example, the full bloodedness of their tackles. They wanted to make sure that they're there. They're not going to screw around here and there, and they just meant business. Also, with the midfield selection, so now Sabitzer and McTominay. I'm sorry, Sabitzer and McTominay, not exactly an ideal midfield pairing. Now, whenever these two have played together, it's not been a huge sample size, but in the limited time that they played together, the results have not exactly been positive. And add to the fact that McTominay was basically at times the most advanced midfielder, and the fact that we had a fully fit Fred on the bench. Do you think that Fred and Sabitzer would have been a much better pairing compared to what was yesterday in McTominay and Sabitzer? What are your thoughts on that? And do you believe that Ten Hag deserves a portion of the blame after yesterday's loss?
I think when things don't go your way, much like the other way around, a bit of credit and a bit of blame always go to a manager in part. I think because of the result did not going our way, I think there is an argument that can be made that okay, maybe Fred would have done better. I completely understand Ten Hag's reasoning. I haven't really heard anything from him on the matter, but two things that make McTominay a choice over Fred here is that a Newcastle are already a very physical team. And when Eddie Howe responds to Ten Hag's remarks regarding calling them annoying, I think he knows exactly what he's doing, because what Ten Hag is trying to say is that Newcastle are very troubling to play against. They are not going to make you they make it very hard for you to play any kind of football that maybe you want to play. It's a hard defense, one of the best defense in the league. So he was essentially making a compliment, and this is something Eddie Howe has did to essentially establish a siege mentality for his players. See, people are out to get us. The media is creating a narrative that we aren't good enough. We need to steal ourselves alongside that. So this is something he did very deliberately. Don't not really have an issue with that. But the McTominay selection, two reasons: A, he had a fantastic international break, 4 goals, and he was quite superb. Secondly, if you are talking about physicality, you need to measure the physicality of your midfield to that of Newcastle's. Newcastle have three very good players in Bruno Guimaraes, Matty Longstaff, and Joe Willock. Guimaraes is phenomenal. Willock and Longstaff are the kind of players who, with instructional coaching, and if you provide them a specific set of instructions, they will carry out a job for you. The common thread in both of their jobs being that they are very physical and they'll be in your face. And
Anshuman
I think
is, I'm sorry to cut you, but it's Sean Longstaff. Matty Longstaff is no longer part of Newcastle.
Very sorry.
Yeah.
Since there's apologies on my part, Sean Longstaff. So the point is that these are going to do a better job than whatever Manchester United's midfield could do, because as Paritosh pointed out, we simply do not have a replacement for Casemiro. And when Casemiro goes, our midfield again has the same issues that it has had over the last couple of seasons. The difference being when you have the likes of Marcel Sabitzer and Christian Eriksen, you get a bit more creativity, a bit more control on the ball when the opposition leaves the ball to you, which is not something that Newcastle do. So United, the midfield battle was always going to be a hard one. I think McTominay was put in for to offer some physicality, which French could not have given, and secondly, he was in the kind of form that he could have been allowed to play an advanced role, which is something Pari knows this, because I've been talking this about for ages, and anyone who watches it with any kind of common sense can understand that neither McTominay nor French are defensive players. And if you are going to play them in a defensive pivot, you need to make sure that you pair them alongside someone who will take the defensive responsibility. So if you are playing alongside Casemiro and French do very good for Brazil. There's a reason for that. French has been scoring more goals. He has been more creative. He has been taking more chances. He has been performing just better. That's not magic. It basically essentially just been playing a position that he's actually good playing in. And that same goes to McTominay. The only problem is that McTominay's skill set is so very limited by the very profile of the player that he is, that it becomes very hard for Ten Hag to come up with excuses to include him into the team. So aggression and physicality are the reasons that immediately pop up when you talk about McTominay. Otherwise, he's the kind of player who makes long darting forward runs, who is a very transition heavy player who would come very good for you in transitions. That's why we have seen him, even when you think about his performances in the past. The Leeds United performances come in mind, especially the ones in which Marcelo Bielsa's Leeds United. So he is an attack-minded player, a player who will make runs from the deep, will be very good at transitions. He has a very good shot in him. So both French and McTominay are the kind of players who should be played further forward, and they need to have a defensive-minded player in the back. Now, the thing with Marcel Sabitzer is that it's a doable compromise. It's better to have Marcel Sabitzer in the back than having to resort to either of French or McTominay, because that's a disaster waiting to happen, as it has happened over the last 2 seasons. But again, from a defensive standpoint, Marcel Sabitzer does end up posing some challenges to you in the same way that having maybe Christian Eriksen does as well. So creatively, you will have a player at the base of your midfield who will help you create chances, who will help you create a much stronger build-up against an opposition who is not interested in having a ball against you. But when you are Newcastle United, one of the best defenses, one of those teams who are very good at disrupting your play. So again, Marcel Sabitzer becomes an issue, because he is one of those players who dives into tackles. So you have two types of when it comes to tendency to defend, there are two different types of players. You have some players who will like to hold their position and see what the player does with it. And then you have players like Harry Maguire, Marcel Sabitzer, who jumps into tackles. Now, it's not a good or a bad thing. It's just the kind of players they are. So Sabitzer has that tendency as well, which again gives you some similar challenges. If he's going to jump into tackle, if the tackle does not work out, that opens up the midfield, that makes the defense vulnerable, and the whole thing just falls apart. So that is a challenge waiting to happen in itself. So not having Casemiro makes all those challenges surface the moment you do not have Casemiro in your team. So I understand the reason for going with McTominay. It did not work out. It happens. I'm pretty sure that if Eric Ten Hag were to have another go, he would have gone with Fred, because Fred at least has some ball carrying capacities and some ability to play in tight spaces, and he has the ability to offer some level of aggression in a way that McTominay doesn't. He is aggressive, he is physical in his own regard, but as far as build-up play is concerned, Fred offers a bit more than McTominay does, because he's not one of those players who's very good at having control on the ball. So it's one of those things. I understand Ten Hag's reasoning for going with McTominay. It did not work out. It happens.
Fair enough, Archibald bhai. Although I did feel, while McTominay was initially tasked to be the most advanced midfielder, and that was mainly due to his exploits in the international break, as the game progressed, it felt like the advanced position was just a nominal way. It was basically a man-marking job on Guimaraes. As you could see, most of the time, McTominay was closely stuck with Guimaraes as and when he had the ball. While that duel was a very snappy proposition in itself, you tend to wonder whether his position was a vague one, where he mixed the man-marking duties along with tasks to being the most advanced midfielder. But then it felt a little haphazard in its execution for some reason or the other. You spoke about Casemiro's absence becoming a hindrance. So Kushagra has gone on to say that we are nothing without Casemiro. Paritosh bhai, I'll put this question to you. This statement basically does this statement have an element of truth to it, or do you think it's another one of those overreactions or the hyperreactions that we talk about?
I mean, it is an overreaction, but there is some element of truth to it as well. It can be both the things. There is truth to it because you can clearly see how much the addition of Casemiro means to the sides with the stats that are there in front of us. With Casemiro, without Casemiro this season or the season before that, when Casemiro wasn't there, there is clear difference in the style that we play, the output that is there with the attacking players, the kind of freedom that other players get when there is a solid defensive midfielder. It can also be credited due to the addition of Lisandro Martinez at the back with Varane, but Casemiro does have a huge role in providing that kind of freedom. I heard Anshuman's bit about McTominay and Fred and Marcel Sabitzer, but I think one player that could have been a better option would have been Eriksen if he was fully fit. He would have had a way better output than McTominay with Marcel Sabitzer, because of the turn of pace or the trickery that Eriksen has. He'll be able to break through the lines more often than not, and that is something we required against teams like Newcastle. Although there are physical aspects to it that he'll not be able to fulfill, but I think his creative abilities are much more in favor of the way that United want to play in particular. So I think that play could have helped, but that is also not a long-term prospect that can last us like 2-3 seasons. I think 1 or 2 seasons. That is also considering the fact that he's not played 90 minutes every now and then. He's played like 40, 45 minutes, 50 minutes. That is the kind of player that he is, because he has some health restrictions. He has some age restrictions with him. So there comes that. I think Casemiro is an important player, but another player that we need to talk about is Diego Dalot and your boy Aaron Wan-Bissaka, because that is one position.
We will have that conversation a little ahead in the stream. I have a certain. There is no bias involved in this. It will just be straight facts. So we will speak about this later on. But let's continue with the Casemiro one. Yeah.
So yeah, I think Casemiro is an important player. Yes, definitely. And Casemiro, as soon as we are able to play him, we should, because that will clearly show how much he means to United, how much he means to Ten Hag's style of play. But there is also the question that if it was the kind of a team that required a certain Casemiro. If it was any other team who are looking to have a go at us and who are not as strong defensively, then we wouldn't have felt the need for Casemiro as much as we did in this particular game, because I think he wasn't there in the side for the second Arsenal game, which we played at Emirates. He wasn't
Yeah,
there,
he wasn't there. No, he wasn't there.
and we still were able to manage good football because Arsenal are a team who lacked defensively, or who aren't as strong as Newcastle, who'd like to have a go, who play attacking minded football. So the need for Casemiro lessened a bit. All obviously he would have had a great impact if he was there, but the clear requirement of him in the side was clearly visible when we were stuck in the midfield battle against Newcastle, who are a team who like to not let you play, who'd like to because Arsenal or any other side who are looking for a championship or a title would like to outplay you, would like to uh, at least show you that they are better at football than you. But Newcastle don't need to do that. Newcastle just want to show you that they are better fighters than you, that they want this result more, that they have more hunger, and that is where players like Casemiro become important. And this I think that is why it was clearly shown in the game against Newcastle.
Yeah, I mean, I also find this a very valid agreement. I think no Casemiro not being there is a huge problem for us, considering the fact that we are too dependent on a CDM to make sure that the fluidity of our play is maintained. On the other hand, you've given some examples where we've done a good job in spite of Casemiro not being there. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, but let's see, in the coming months, coming season or so, hopefully we should be able to rectify that problem. Anshuman Bhai, before we get into the meat of the topic, Sachin Bhai says that yesterday's game, we basically entered the game with the approach of a draw, and he felt like the winning mentality was not visible by some of the players, and he was, in essence, he was basically disappointed with the performance, not exactly the performance, but the body language that was in display of some of the players. So, do you believe that we played for a draw? I certainly believe we did not go there for a draw, but because of the atmosphere, because it was a very surreal atmosphere, I've always believed that St. James's Park is uh, one of those cauldrons where you don't like playing there. Paritosh Bhai spoke about Anfield being one of those venues where you just don't like playing. I feel St. James's Park is right up there because that's a very intimidating place to be whenever the Newcastle fans are in full force. And yesterday, goddamn, they were in full force. So Anshuman Bhai, do you believe that we'd gone there to play for a draw? Do you think our intention out there while going to play there was get to 1 point and take stock of situation?
No, I don't think so. I think United went in pretty much to get maximum points. Very rarely does it happen that a team vying for the top places will go into a match thinking, okay, let's just cut it at halftime and see what happens. So I think that kind of narrative is easier to make. That kind of a point is easy to make once you have lost the game, because it's a very football fan thing. Because if you lost the game, it means something that you wanted to happen did not happen. So if something that you wanted to happen did not happen, you need to find an excuse to it. You need to find a concrete answer for anything that has gone wrong. The sad reality is there aren't always concrete answers to everything that you're looking to find an answer for. Sometimes they just aren't. And thinking of this idea, sometimes ref makes a dodgy decision, so he ends up taking the blame, because every football fan of every football club thinks that the referees of their league have an agenda against them. So it's one of those things. Sometimes you just need to find a reason to calm yourself. So these kind of narratives come up all the time once a team loses or does not get the right results. That okay, this did not look right, this that did not look right, that. It's just the reality of the matter is you face the team on an equal footing at a slight disadvantage, and things could have gone our way. Things could have gone both their teams' way. It could have ended in a draw. For me, the performance was more like an ill result, but they got their chances and they took it. These things happen. It's just one of those games where the performance was not abhorrent, but the result did not go our way. So it's just one of those things. So no, I do not think that Manchester United went into the game looking for a draw.
Anshuman Bhai just explained the old-fashioned whatever helps you sleep at night. The whole thing. That's a very good way of putting it, Anshuman Bhai. It's just a good way. Now we speak about the most popular topic, and there is a lot of discussion about that in comment. So let me just read a few comments about this guy. A sarcastic comment first. Diego Dalo is world class. Uh, then we go down to, yeah, what about the performance about Dalo? Is he worth giving a contract? Amit Pai says Dalo should be sold. Now, Dalo versus Alain Saint-Maximin is a matchup that we've seen 2 times. And both those times, Alain Saint-Maximin has absolutely had a brilliant time. Alain Maximin partied like it's 1999 both the times he faced Diego Dalo. It, it Watching Dalo against Saint Maximin and watching Saint Maximin literally run rings around Dalo gave me the impression. There's this one meme which goes around, youth give energy drinks to Robber just so they can beat him up again. I'm sorry, I find it too hilarious, but that's exactly how it felt like. Sam Maximan gave Dalo false sense of hope and then absolutely destroyed him to smithereens the whole game. Unfortunately, Aaron Van Bissaka was not available for this game due to illness. But Anshuman bhai, do you think that there is a rising point of concern with Dalo's level of performances since the World Cup break? Because it's not been the same performances that we seen Dalo give before the break. The Dalo before the World Cup break was self-assured, was confident, always was involved in the build-up, was not afraid to carry the ball, and was very robust in himself from a defensive standpoint as well. All these qualities that made Dalo such a viable option earlier, and that was the reason why Aaron was out of the squad in the first place, along with injury issues of his own. We've seen a shadow of that Dalo throughout the course of the second half of the season. Do you think this is a concern, or do you think it's just one of those moments where a player has just come back from injury and he's still feeling his way through? Although it's been a while since he's come back from that injury, but do you think that could have something to play, or is this just a dip in form?
So, one word answer for the concern part is no. And so, a bit of explanation on that. The thing about dealing with Anasa Maxima is that as a defender, you don't really know how to deal with him, or you don't really know what he's going to do next. And the reason for that is Anasa Maxima himself does not know what he's going to do next. He's a very, very in the moment type of dribbler. He takes the ball, he figures out solution on the go. So there is no, like Antonio Valencia. You know what would happen when Antonio Valencia got down the right flank? He's going to have to try to do a step over and then pass the ball back. That's not the thing with Anasa Maxima. He himself does not know what the next thing is going to take. So it's not just the case of Diogo Dalo struggling against him. It's a fact of anyone who comes against him struggles. Now, is an argument to be made here is that if Aaron Van Bissaka would have been available, would he have done a better job on Sa Maxima? On a 1v1
Absolutely.
basis, on a 1v1 basis, I would say yes, he would have, because for all the faults and limitations Van Bissaka has, he is an excellent tackler. And that's one thing that he would have had in his locker alongside when facing Anasa Maxima. The problem with Van Bissaka as a right back option under Erik ten Hag is that from a creative standpoint, for a team that Erik ten Hag is trying to build, a team that's confident on the ball, a team that is in which players are comfortable contributing to the build-up phase, Aaron Van Bissaka does none of those things. Over the past 4 years, few things that we have seen that he's good at, and the only thing that he's good at is that he's a very good tackler. When it comes to tackling, he's one of the best in the world. There's absolutely no two ways about that. But the problem is, in a football, in a team, you require a bit more of your qualities, especially when you're playing for someone like Erik ten Hag. It worked fine for Solskjaer because, as far as Solskjaer was concerned, in the beginning years of Aaron Van Bissaka, the instruction was as simple as, if you can contribute forward, do that. If you can't, stay back and just do simple passing as much as you can. And when the ball comes your way, tackle. In time, opposition found it out. And what they essentially did was find Aaron Van Bissaka out of position, because he cannot tackle you if he's not if he's not running alongside you, if he's not in a position. So basically, just do that. He's positionally flawed, Aaron Van Bissaka. So if you can isolate him, if you can run behind him, then it's toast. He's not going to do that. He cannot tackle you if he's not following you. So that's as simple. That's what basically taking Van Bissaka out of the conversation requires. Would that have happened in this particular game against Newcastle? Yes, because the players that are playing alongside Sa Maxima are just as important to keep in mind. The likes of Dan Burn, who's contributing off the left hand side. You have Bruno Guimaraes, who's a fantastic player on the ball. Someone Eric Ten Hag would like to replace Casemiro in the long term. Not sure it will happen, but he's one of those players that Ten Hag would really like to have on his side. And Joe Willock, who would have made sure that Samaxima was found alone in a space where Wan-Bissaka could not essentially tackle it. So those situations would have created. But on a 1v1 situation, if you were to say that, okay, Sam Maxima is coming at you, forget the idea about space, forget the argument about who is following whom, forget the idea about who is being accompanied and what are your opponent players, what are your teammates. If it's just about Sam Maxima coming at you and you need a player to defend, who will you take? I'll say Wan-Bissaka, straight up. Because he's going to tackle him and he's going to come out with the ball, or he's going to make a light foul. Easy. He's a very good tackler, but that he's very restrictive in his profile, which is something that Diogo Dalot is not. He's very good. He's good on the ball. He's good at contributing. He's good at going forward. He can hold the ball. He can make the runs as well. He can play down both of the flanks, and he's someone who is able to understand those instructional side of the build-up play better than Wan-Bissaka, because we have been seeing this since the start of pre-season that Wan-Bissaka he's trying things out with Wan-Bissaka, and Wan-Bissaka is still just not able to do that. He looks completely out of place, especially at the start of the season when Eric Ten Hag was actually asking him to do some build-up stuff. He has since stopped, and when he reintegrated Wan-Bissaka into the team, to look how little Wan-Bissaka keeps the ball. Next time Wan-Bissaka plays, just keep this in mind. Try to look at what kind of passes he makes, because immediately when the ball goes to Wan-Bissaka, there's always someone ready to take the ball off him. Because the idea, at least from an observational standpoint, the idea that Ten Hag is given Aaron Wan-Bissaka is that you don't need to hold the ball. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about creating exquisite passes. Don't worry about chance creation or anything like that. At the moment the ball comes to you, just make the simplest pass that is available to you. Because Antony is the kind of player who is more of a wide playmaker. He'll come to support you. Casemiro is supporting you on the DM side. You have Rafael Varane taking your positional aspect. So he's much better covered in that regard as well. And so build-up responsibility is taken away from him. And when he's not on the ball, he's always making underlapping runs. If he's not, because it's usually Antony holding the width on the right hand side, or anyone else who's playing on that side, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka is just looking to make an underlapping run. Again, he's a transition focused player, so that those are the kind of qualities that Eric Ten Hag is relying on. He's making a lot of sacrifices, making a lot of compromises, which is something that we have seen Ten Hag having had to do this season. That he knows that this is not a team that can play the ideal kind of football that he's looking for. So he's having to make do with the likes of players. And Wan-Bissaka is one of those players that he's having to make do with. So how do you deal with someone who's very limited in their skill set? This is how you deal them with. You give them incredibly instructional coaching. You take the responsibilities away from them as much as you can, and you try to maximize their strengths. So if it comes about tackling, okay, let Wan-Bissaka do his thing. He'll take it. He'll take care of it. If we have a chance where we can put Wan-Bissaka behind the opposition line, if there is a chance for him to make a run, let him make that run. And from those situations, he might be able to give the cross. He might be able to take a shot. It may go in, it may not. But that is the thing, that a player of very limited skill set is being asked to do those kinds of things. And Diogo Dalot is simply, from a base standpoint, a much better player than Wan-Bissaka. So who would Eric Ten Hag ideally like better in his team? He would definitely always go for Diogo Dalot, especially against a team with whom he would feel like, okay, we need to create some chances here, and I need my wide fullback to be more of a creative player than just someone who makes a lot of tackles. In that cases, he'll always go with Diogo Dalot. Now, does Diogo Dalot have limitations? 100%. Can an argument be made that both of our right backs need to be upgraded? Of course. But the current situation is that based on what Eric Ten Hag requires from their players, Diogo Dalot fits the bill much better than Aaron Wan-Bissaka ever would. So, if Wan-Bissaka would have been there, if he was available, I think he would have featured in the game if not from the start, then later on, because he would have just given him an instruction: just deal with Samaxima. You take care of him. We'll take care of everything else. So that would have been one of the things to look out for. But he wasn't available. So again, yeah. So Diogo Dalot's performances, based on what he has been performing after the World Cup, is not much of a concern for me. He's just doing his thing. If it doesn't stand out for you, that's fine, because he doesn't really need to stand out. Not every player needs to stand out. Why is he being singled out right now is, again, a matter of narrative. Harry Maguire is no longer in the starting lineup, so you need a new whipping boy. Paul Pogba is out of the window. Everyone loves Lisandro. Everyone loves Vahan. David De Gea, people have a very sentimental standpoint to have a sentimental career connection with. Still, he gets a lot of stick. But if you're looking at outfield players, you need to find your new someone to take someone to become the new lightning rod, right? Which is why the idea is that okay, Diogo Dalot could be one of those players. So this is the explanation as to why Dalot could be targeted, and that's otherwise my explanation for as to why Eric Ten Hag thinks that Diogo Dalot is a better alternative for him at right back than Wan Bissaka. Could he upgrade? Would he like to upgrade and get a better right back? Always, you would always like to have a better player than the one you currently have, but you can only work with what you have and what you're going to get. So that's what he has right now, Diogo Dalot.
Fair enough. So basically, you're not impressed. I am. It's this is not in any way a slight. Or because I have an Aaron Van Bissaka bias. My question, it's a yes or no question. Simple. Do you believe that you're still not convinced with the improvement that Van Bissaka has shown throughout the season? Is what I'm assuming. Still not impressed? Okay, fair enough. All right, Partosh bhai. One final question before I get to what next. Another player whose performances, or if media is to be believed that Eric Ten Hag is running thin on patience with this particular player is Sancho. Now, once again, this is another recurring theme. You can put it as with the media not having a particular lightning rod, like Anshuman Bhai rightly pointed out in Dalot's situation for that person, or for that particular instance. Do you think that this is just another lightning rod movement, or have Sancho's performances really really given you a cause of concern, saying that okay, Ten Hag has tried him in different positions. He's tried him in his preferred position. He's tried to make him a little more flexible, but still none of those have exactly turned out the way they expected to. Are you concerned with Sancho's performances, or is this another instance of give the lad a little bit more time and then we'll see how it goes? You're on mute, Partosh bhai. Yeah.
For me, Sancho's performances, I think, are also dependent on the players around him. I think Sancho would be a lot better if there was a better goal finisher, if we are to put, because Weghorst isn't quite finishing his chances. If he was finishing his chances, we would see Sancho in a completely different light, because then we'll be talking about the goals that were there because of Sancho. Yes, there are improvements to be made in Sancho's performances, and I think Sancho has a lot more potential. He has shown that he's a lot better player than what we are seeing currently. But I think if Martial is to be fit for the final leg of this season, we'll see a better Sancho along with Rashford. If Sancho, Martial, Rashford, and you can say Anthony from the right, if these players play, and Bruno is there as well in tandem, we'll see a completely different Sancho if there is a better striker, because I think Sancho's best performances have come with Martial somehow involved. I think so, as far as I can remember. If there's a combination between Rashford, Martial, there is Sancho's involvement as well. So he needs these kind of players to string passes to have an attack minded game plan with. But yes, there is a cause of concern. The cause of concern is there, not as huge as the media makes it to be, because that is the case with Manchester United or any big club for that reason. That if a player who has been signed for a lot of money doesn't quite perform, he'll always be under scrutiny. He'll always have questions around him, especially if the player is someone who has shown that he's a lot better player than what he currently is. Anthony doesn't get that much stick because he is doing similar kind of things that he was doing prior to his arrival at Manchester United. Although he cost a lot of money, most people know that Manchester United overpaid because of the time that he was signed at, because of the situation of Ajax, and because of Eric Ten Hag's desperation to want Anthony in the side. So there were multiple reasons for that. That's why Anthony gets away from the scrutiny. also he has had performances where he has been very good. He has some strong abilities and that cover up for most things. But Sancho has not shown the kind of capabilities he has, or what every fan wanted him to straight away perform in the Premier League when he came from the Bundesliga, and he has not done that. So yes, I think there is a slight cause of concern, not as big as people want it to be, but I think with time it will get better, especially with the inclusion of Martial or another striker after the season.
All right. So we've spoken about everything we had to cover about this game. Just one final question before we wrap up. To both Anshuman Bhai and Partosh Bhai, the loss to Newcastle means that Newcastle are on third place on goal difference. Spurs are 1 point behind us, I guess. I think they're on 49, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
49,
with one game more.
but one
With
game
one game
over.
more.
Yeah, one game over. So simple question. You can elaborate, or it could be a simple yes or no answer. Do United still have their top four destiny in their own hands, or does the Newcastle result ring alarm bells for United's chances in the top four? Anshuman bhai?
Both of those things are true. The result should be ringing alarm bells for the United players if they haven't already. But United do have the destiny very much in their own hands. I think if they perform the way they have done throughout the season, even with their patchy performances, even if we don't win every single remaining Premier League match, I think we should be fine. I think Newcastle have a bigger challenge on their hands, and I think they have less to lose because at the end of the day, if they don't make top four, I think they'll still feel pretty good about themselves because they know that they are a team that is overperforming. Given that this is a team that was set for relegation at the end of in midway through last season, so I think they have less to lose, so they will play a bit more free ball. But things are also a lot more challenging for them because this result may have turned in their favor, but they still have had challenges converting their chances in the rest of the games. So United have when it comes to the remaining 10 games, United have things still in their favor. They still have a lot more agency over what their future is going to be like. Players need to wake up to this fact that okay, this is a good time we have lost the game because it reminds you that you still need to earn your place in the top four. It will not be handed to you just because you are Manchester United. There are a lot of teams around you ready to take that spot off you. So that alarm bell has rung. Now it's on to the players to perform, and if they have performed the way they have the rest of the season, I think we will at least get top four, if not more.
All right. Partosh bhai, your views on the question? Similar views or something different?
I think I stand somewhere similar with Anshuman regarding this question. I think United have their destiny in their own hands, and I think United still are a side that is preferred by most because of the run of games that we have. We have. I think we I think we are done with our top six if we
We
are to
only have
consider
Spurs
everyone.
and Chelsea to play out of
Yeah,
the big
and
names.
both of them are undergoing a crisis. Although Chelsea have sacked Potter and they'll probably have a new manager pool, so there'll be a new manager bounce in both the sides, in Tottenham as well as in Chelsea, and they
No,
both will have a point to prove.
Spurs are playing with Stellini to the end of the season, who was Conte's assistant. So he's going to be interim up until the end of the season. So there will be no
Is it
managerial
confirmed?
change.
They
Yes, it is confirmed. They are not going to have any
okay.
managerial change in at least for this season.
But there is like this mentality that players might have that we have to prove to everyone that there is still hunger in us, and Conte was wrong, that this club will succeed and that kind of thing. So both the teams will like to have some results, but as soon as Casemiro returns, as soon as we are able to have this result at Newcastle as a positive motivation or even a negative motivation, whatever the way you want to take it, and get back to the way we play. I think it shouldn't be a problem because I think in my memory, I think that Liverpool have tougher fixtures, Newcastle have tougher fixtures than us, and both of them are not as consistent in some department or the other. Liverpool as a whole are not as consistent this season. Newcastle, with their offensive record, are not as consistent. I think in the top four, they have the most number of draws. Newcastle, if I'm not wrong, uh, and I think that. that is one of the reasons why I think Manchester United will finish above, because although they do have a goal difference, but I think we have more wins, and by the end of the season, we should have more wins if I am considering everything. So I think we'll be able to finish top four. We do have destiny in our own hands, but all that if is taken into consideration, this fixture I think was a very good wake up call, and I think we needed that. We needed to be reminded that we are not to take things lightly. As Anshuman said, not everything will be handed to you, and yeah, I'm not too concerned with it because there are still things for us to play for, even if we are not able to finish top four. But I think we'll finish top four.
Yeah, like there was a piece in the Athletic that said, winning the FA Cup or the Europa League will give you the glamour of the season, but finishing in the top four will give you insurance that this is a springboard for the rest of the season. So yeah, Anshuman bhai, Partosh bhai, thank you so much for joining the stream. Great discussion. It was lovely to pick your brains on what exactly you all felt about the result, as well as the other underlying factors that brought us to that result yesterday. Thank you to everyone in the comment section for letting your opinions know. Before we wrap up the stream, thank you so much. We've crossed 2,000 subscribers, so congratulations, Partosh bhai. Congratulations, Anshuman bhai. All this wouldn't be
Congratulations, everybody.
all this wouldn't be possible with the people on the stream, and to all of the people who've joined us in the streams. Not possible. It's a collective effort, and thank you to each and every one of you, especially the people who joined us on our streams every single time we've rolled them out. We want, and with your help, we'll grow even more, and that is the main objective. So do keep following us on our journey. Do smash the like button, do press the subscribe button, and do press the bell icon so that you're notified for every video that we put out on this channel. 2,000 strong family, with much more long to go. I think our journey is well and truly on the way. Thank you so much once again. We're equally active on our social media space on Instagram and on Twitter. The username is on right down below. We use the same username on Twitter as well. So do drop us a follow there too. I say this on every stream, and today is no different. Every day is match day on our official WhatsApp group. We'd love to have you there. It's an ever-growing family there too. We always have room for more. With that being said, this is Delvin along with Anshuman bhai and Partosh bhai, wishing all of you good night. Stay safe, stay healthy, dust off the defeat, chin up. It's a long week ahead. Do take care of yourself, and we will see you soon on the other side with another episode. Till then, GGMU and goodbye.